Is vision something that helps us achieve our goals, or does it merely describe an aspiration that never comes to be? In 1999, a group of 175 music educators, community arts representatives, industry figures, and students met and crafted a document. This collection of writings, called Vision 2020, sought to, quote, present a vision that will guide the future of music education through the next 20 years, end quote. Well, these 20 years have elapsed, leaving us with a chance for a retrospective. When we talk about the future or the past, we like the metaphor of vision and sight. We speak of looking ahead and looking back. We speak of hindsight. When we want someone to agree with us, we say, look, here's the issue. We know some things are easier to see more clearly than others. We say that hindsight is 2020, denoting perfect vision, and our experience kind of bears that out. When we look back on what happened, it's interesting how it can make us feel simultaneously omniscient and helpless. The vantage point makes some things seem obvious. How could anyone not have seen the housing crisis of 2008 coming? Or, it's so obvious now that she and I never would have worked out. But hindsight also reminds us of our vulnerability. Looking back, we wonder how we could have anticipated something like COVID-19. Or we look back with some agony on a job and say, oh, everything seemed fine at first. Frustratingly, the clarion view that hindsight offers makes visioning for the future no less challenging. Maybe you've been involved in crafting a vision statement, maybe one like Vision 2020, maybe alongside a mission statement. It's such daunting work. So today, as I meditate on Vision 2020 and 2020 vision, the first question to ask is the most obvious. Did Vision 2020 come true? Or perhaps we could ask whether the field has made meaningful progress towards the vision. It'd be frustrating to avoid this question. In fact, the other day, I was sitting outside of Costco while they were rotating the tires on my minivan. Very cool, I know, don't be jealous. I was reading the book version of Vision 2020 that NAFME sent out last year, and a man walked up and asked what I was reading. I showed him the cover and he said, Vision for the future. Did they get it right? Or at least bat 500? I shrugged and said I wasn't sure. I have this uncertainty because Vision 2020 tried to present a collective vision, but collective visions are complicated. Perhaps that's always true of vision. Individuals need vision, and they have ideals. As scholar Karen Hammerness has demonstrated, teachers passionately discuss vision. They talk about their ideal images of what educational practice should be. These visions are then met with constraints, and they fall short, often with negative consequences for the teachers. Failure to achieve a personal vision can cause feelings of deflation and disenchantment. As Hammerness has noted, quote, vision can make some teachers' ambitions soar, but it can also prompt self-doubt and despair. But a collective vision? That's arguably no less important for providing direction, ambition, priorities. But the visioning work, it's definitely more daunting. Whose voice gets heard? Who tries to talk but ultimately can't? When the compromise inevitably comes, does it reflect the diversity of opinions of an institution or an entire field? So did the field of music education meet its vision for what children should learn in school music classrooms? Answer, sort of, maybe. But also, who am I to say? If you haven't read the Vision 2020 book, you should. Maybe the next time you're waiting at Costco. It's full of 13 chapters, some of which are responses to one another. The calls for creativity, technology, diverse musical styles were powerful. And then it ends with a declaration, a manifesto of sorts. I think that some of this vision has proven influential, but our field evolves in pockets, in fits and spurts. I study arts education policy, and it's an accepted fact that policy making for any field is marked by periods of stasis, an equilibrium that is then punctuated by movement and change, before returning to that same predictable stasis. Even among those of us meeting together this week, we wouldn't agree on the success of the vision. But I do suggest you read for yourself. See what you think. But now for the next inevitable question. Now what? Some have already suggested a Vision 2020. a Vision 2040, a Vision 2060, maybe a Tanglewood 3 symposium. I ask if it's possible and helpful, though, to write a vision statement on a national scope. It provides direction, but it can also suggest consensus where true agreement is lacking and is important. Scholar Colleen Conway once said to me that curriculum is in the conversation, meaning the debates about curriculum are the point of curriculum work. Maybe that's true with vision work, in which case, maybe we should have a lot more vision-focused meetings and a lot fewer collective statements. We know that a vision for the future will always lack the 2020 quality of hindsight, but let's extend the vision metaphor some more, shall we? Let's examine something specific in Vision 2020. Maybe by doing a close reading, we can do better the next time around. Let's try out a few things. We can try reading between the lines, thinking about dominant eyes, and finding our blind spots. Hope you're not tired of the vision metaphor yet. Reading between the lines means to find the intent, to see past the obvious or the surface. Here's a statement from Vision 2020. Even in this innocuous statement, we see a vision that includes binaries, that others certain traditions, one that speaks by omission, one that dances around issues. If we push ourselves to read between the lines, things pop out. We see the ways in which values are present, the ways in which a lens is subtly applied. We have to be careful of the starting line when approaching a vision for the future. Is it to reaffirm prior visions, except for glaring cases of problems that require redefinition and embrace change? If we looked toward 2040, could we really even start with Vision 2020, or would we need a fresh start? When Vision 2020 was written, there was no Facebook. There was no YouTube. Google had just started the year prior, but was probably struggling to compete with Yahoo and Ask Jeeves. My fellow old millennials in the crowd might feel nostalgic with me. I think as a field, our tendency has been to start with reaffirmation. Take the national music standards as an example. The standards, released first in '94, were not revisited until 2007, and at that time the consensus was that we basically needed no changes, with the task force writing at the time that changing the standards would constitute, quote, moving the goalposts in the middle of the game, end quote. It wasn't until Common Core came along and shook up the arts community that they begrudgingly decided to take another look. We can think about this through the metaphor of eye dominance. You know about that, right? Try this out. Pick a stationary object across the room and with both eyes open, center it in a little triangle that you make with your hands. Then close one eye at a time. One eye, the dominant eye, will keep the object centered while the other eye moves it, kind of a lot. Point being, our vision might seem to be objective, but we tend to use a dominant eye or a dominant approach. But the toughest of all might be confronting our blind spots. Sometimes you don't know what you aren't seeing. When progressive educators met for Tanglewood in 1967, they thought they were doing great work, but they had a blind spot for deficit narratives. I offer as an example Tanglewood Declaration Statement number 7 that reads, quote, "The music education profession must contribute its skills, proficiencies, and insights toward assisting in the solution of urgent social problems as in the inner city or other areas with culturally deprived individuals." Wow. Thank God for hindsight, am I right? Since I'm speaking to this audience, I'd like to suggest that our field has a blind spot for popular music. For the sake of clarity and acknowledging the many definitions out there, I'd like to suggest that popular music or musics are those that are widely listened to and engaged in. In suggesting this blind spot, I mean that many music educators may not know that they don't even get popular music. Popular music was mentioned in some past vision statements, to be sure. But again, as something to consider adding from a vantage point of mostly reaffirmation. My sense is, though, if they were faced with the blind spot around pop music pedagogy, the field might feel some urgency to dispense with reaffirmation and move toward redefinition. I offer here a quiz that might demonstrate the blind spot. Probably not to many of you, but maybe, if the questions seem a bit different from the knowledge and skills present in most of academia, well, they do to me too. I would like to write that last song on there, by the way. That'd be a fun exercise. See, seeing the stark differences that pop music pedagogy presents might be enough to shake us up, to make us throw away the old eye charts and start with something new. It might make us close one eye and open the other. But also, to be honest, don't hold your breath. When in 2016 the College Music Society released a progressive vision for revamping the undergraduate music degree, it was contentious. Depending on who you talk to, it was a vision that was more blasphemy than prophecy. But who knows, APME? Maybe confronting this blind spot would knock our glasses off a little. And that might be a good thing as we look toward the future. Thank you.